Thank you, Roz Larman. This is Folk Scene. I'm Howard Larman with Peter Cutler and Stephen Barker at the controls, live from Studio A. Our guest is Jackson Browne. Gonna start with a song, Jackson?
Yeah, sure.
I've seen trouble all my days. I'll say goodbye to Colorado and where I was partly raised. Oh, mother said I am a stranger. My face you'll never see no more. But here's one promise, little darling, we'll meet on God's golden shore. Snow, sleet and rain. I'm bound to ride that morning railroad. Perhaps I'll die on that train. California, place where I started from. Yeah, if I'd known how bad you treat me, I swear to God I never would have come.
Good to have you here, Jackson.
Thank you.
Finally, yeah. You're generally talked about as being an Orange County person who escaped.
Yeah, I lived out there when I went to high school, so it's where I started singing and where I first, started singing folk music, actually.
Yeah.
Clubs like that, Paradox and the Golden Bear, like that.
Was it, it's been said about you that you've always done music. That's been like the only thing in your life as far as vocation and avocation at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Was it in your mind early on to become a professional musician? Was it?
Yeah, I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do, but it became pretty apparent somewhere in middle of school. That's all I was really interested in doing. I thought I could write songs and send them in for other people to sing. I thought that would be a good way to live. I mean, I didn't really think of singing them myself until I began hearing other people sing them, and thought that, well, thought in some cases anyway, I could do them better. And I guess I never thought about it. Yeah, I never really have done anything else. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did have a job briefly. Well, they had a chance to hire me as a busboy in this one place, but I just sort of, and they didn't want me, and I figured, well, they've had their chance. The workaday world has had their chance.
You wound up early on in New York, backing up Nico, right?
Yeah, I went to New York. Friends of mine were going there. They were actually going to Europe, and we drove across the country in a Rambler American station wagon. And I wound up staying in New York, and they went on I stayed in a friend of mine's apartment who was working in the Head Start program. I was about 18, I think he was 20 or something. And that was Steve Noonan, and who he got a contract singing on Elektra Records, and that was it was a great folk label at that time, and it was sort of right before the Doors and that label's foray into rock and roll.
Yeah. Our guest is Jackson Browne, and you backed up Nico, right? Or did you go to New York?
I got a job. Actually, I got a job. You asked me about her. I got a job playing guitar for her because she was in the Velvet Underground or had been for a while, and was just going to go sing on her own then, and so she needed an accompanist. And Tim Buckley called me and said, and I'd seen him playing on the same bill as her, and I guess she'd asked him if he wanted to do it, and he was, he had other gigs and stuff, so he knew I was destitute, and I'd sort of run out of the $50 that I'd come to New York with, and was, kind of a burden to my friends. So he recommended me, and I got the job, and it was I did it for a couple months.
Did you go to New York with songs in your pocket, or?
Yeah. Well, I'd written songs. I'd written some songs, and
were you pitching them to anybody there?
I've never really pitched them to anybody. I still don't really do that. It's not. Well, that's not true. I have pitched them. I pitched them to Bonnie Raitt, and I pitched them to Linda Ronstadt, but they never do the ones you want them to do, and I always learn something about it by playing them a bunch of songs, which ones they have decided to do, But no, I actually wasn't that kind of a world. Basically, I guess I imagined that I would live a certain kind of life. That's about as close to thinking about what I was doing. I did, just thought, I'll go to New York, and I remember getting to go to a recording studio where Phil Harris and Harvey. Oh man, what's his last name? Harvey Gold. I'm forgetting his last name. The guy that was the bass player he played on a bunch of Dylan records and a bunch of. He was in Electric Flag and stuff. Harvey Brooks. Why don't I think?
Yeah.
I think maybe it's one of his real name is Goldsmith or something like that. Harvey Brooks, bass player, and I remember just sort of kicking around New York. I remember thinking New York was really amazing because people just sort of ignored you, and I thought that was so cool, Because in Orange County, they'd get in your face. They would either they wouldn't ignore you. They would basically, confront you, So, yeah, New York was fun. It was fun to go there, and I didn't really have any plans at all. I kind of wished I'd kept going. Now I've always sort of wished that I had just gone to Europe with my friends. I was always thinking something was going to happen. I was going to get a record deal or something, but it was years before anything like that happened.
Our guest live from Studio A is Jackson Browne. How about another song?
Running down around the towns along the shore, and I was 16 and on my own. No, I couldn't tell you what the hell us breaks were for. I was just trying to hear my song. Jimmy found his own sweet sound and won that free guitar. We'd all get in the van and play. Life became the paradox, the bear, the rouge and noir, and the stretch of road running to L.A. Pages turning, pages we were years from learning. Straight into the night our hearts were flung. Better bring your stars above and the lights below. Among those there to test their fortunes and their wills, I lost track of the score long ago. Pages turning, pages we were years from learning. Straight into the night our hearts were flown. Better bring your own redemption when you come to the barricades of heaven where I'm from. Childhood comes for me at night. Voices of my friends, her face bathing me in light. Hope that never ends. Pages turning, pages torn and pages burning, faded pages open in the sun. Better bring your own redemption when you come to the barricades of heaven where I'm from. When you come to the barricades of heaven where I'm from.
Live from Studio A. Now, there was a story that I think Dick Rossmini told me himself, that he had got you in the back room of, say, the Paradox or something, and recorded a whole bunch of your songs to take around the record companies. Does that sound right?
Yeah, he did some recording of me on a little reel-to-reel tape machine, I think. And what I remember most is that when I got a chance to make a demo for Columbia, that he came by and he played. He sort of classed it up a little bit, you know.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if you need to have, you know, like if you're auditioning as, you know, as a singer or a songwriter, it doesn't really necessarily mean you have to have a great flashy guitar player standing there playing with you. But it was a great gesture on his part, you know, one of belief. Of sort of, he's kind of, you know, he kind of mentored.
But you,
at that point.
But you wound up with Asylum Electra, or they're the same
you know,
company.
Howard, it's years before anybody would make a record with me.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I think the reason I was making a demo at Columbia was that somebody who was about to become my manager worked there, you know, right at that point, and had actually for quite a few years. But then, yeah, you know, it's just sort of at that point he started to work for Elektra, and it you know, it went that way. You know, like I say, I didn't sing that well then. I don't sing that well now. So but then I sang really bad. And a friend of mine asked me to listen to these early demos of mine recently, and said, "I think you really like them. They really show the, you know, the seed of, you know, like what you were to do later. You know, the brilliance to come. You know." And I like a fool, I listened to these demos, which were even worse than I remembered them. But you know, it was a time when everybody was starting to sing their own songs, you know. And I mean, really, I don't think people these days realize that it wasn't. Well, maybe people all sang folk music and stuff.
Yeah.
But in terms of the music business, there were little guys running around with demos the songwriters wrote, and then he got performers to perform them, and it was a different world. So that suddenly in the mid '60s, everybody could write songs, everybody could sing, and most of us sang pretty badly.
I was going to say something about.
I look like I'm embarrassing you. This is my.
No. I was just thinking about Dylan when he first came along. Everybody just started to focus on lyrics and not so much on flashy production.
But he was a really great singer. He was an amazing singer. But his style was so rough that people didn't really think of it, and they didn't have any kind of basis to judge that. It was just so. Rough and so different than what most people were used to, in terms of pop music and stuff. But he really was a great singer.
But it was not a style that the commercial market was. Obviously, he made the commercial market for what he did.
Yeah, he completely changed what people
exactly
did and what they thought.
Plus, he got people listening to lyrics.
Yeah.
Is there a particular singer-songwriter that influenced you that you wanted to emulate when you started writing?
You're talking about Bob Dylan. He was probably the first person to really turn on a light in my head to really, to really inspire me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was other than the people that I knew. I mean, if you knew a guy on your street, or if there was a guy, my sister was going out with some guy that could really play guitar. That was amazing to me, and I would hang around these guys. And there was a lot of music in my family. Like, we had guitars and mandolins and stuff, and my grandfather played these instruments. My dad played he played piano and Dixieland all the time. He had amazing jam sessions where people would sing and play, and people were always coming through and staying with us who played guitar. This is one guy that came through, I remember, because he gave me his pick. I must have been about 4 or something, but I remember this pick, little black guitar pick that he gave me, like it was a talisman, and he was kind of a bad news. He was some guy my dad knew from the Army, he's a good guitar player. But
you hung around all those little folk clubs down in Orange County, right?
Yeah.
As an audience, as a performer as well,
both.
or?
Well, both. I mean, that's what happens with folk music. Everybody would play. That's what's great about folk music. It really was very self-empowering, and everybody. I mean, you'd learn these songs, and you'd be pretty soon. I mean, it was at a time when folk music was starting to get played in clubs, and especially in Orange County, there was a kind of commercial folk music which was popular among high school and college kids and stuff, and there was a lot of it was humor and kind of shtick, and a certain kind of, I don't want to name any names, but a kind of real, kind of Brady Bunch kind of music that was kind of silly and collegiate. And then there was the club there were real clubs, like clubs like the Ash Grove, and out in Orange County, of course, the Ash Grove is in Hollywood, but this club that I hung around in Orange County called the Paradox was a real traditional music club, and you could hear Sonny Terry and Browne McGee and Jack Elliott. They're tiny clubs that were, like only seated maybe 100 people, but these great, great people came by and played. And so I was lucky in that respect. Got exposed to some great musicians. And Hoyt Axton played these clubs. Who had like sort of one foot in that commercial world and was also just a real, genuine, wild man songwriter.
Our guest is Jackson Browne. How about another song?
All right, let me think of something here. This is a song that Roz asked me to sing. This is an adaptation of a very old folk song from England, I guess. It was adapted by a man named Sidney Carter. But I sang this song for Graham Nash, and we wound up singing it together on this No Nukes record. But he remembered the folk song. which I never heard. So I only grew up listening to this adaptation. I learned it from Steve Noonan, who I think got it out of a Sing Out magazine. The sheep's in the meadow, the cow's in the corn. Now is the time for a child to be born. He'll laugh at the moon and he'll cry for the sun. And if it's a boy, he'll carry a gun. Sang the crow on the cradle. And if it should be that this baby's a girl, never you mind if her hair doesn't curl. With rings on her fingers and bells on her toes, and a bomber above her wherever she goes. Sang the crow on the cradle.
Somebody's baby is not coming back. Sang the crow on the cradle. Your mother and father, they'll sweat and they'll save to build you a coffin and dig you a grave. Hush up, my little one, never you weep, for we've got a toy that can put you to sleep. Sang the crow on the cradle. And I'll shoot that bird dead. That's what your mother and father once said. Crow on the cradle, what can we do? Ah, this is a thing that I'll leave up to you. Sang the crow on the cradle. The crow on the cradle.
Thank you so much for doing that. I love that song.
Yeah, it's a very powerful song, I think.
Our guest is Jackson Browne. His latest record is called Looking East on Elektra. Elektra and Asylum, the same company, aren't they? Or is it... Am I confused?
Well, it's the same company. Basically, now Asylum's a country label, but you know, who can keep track of these things? They probably won't even be labels next year. Who knows? You know?
That'd be one giant.
I was originally signed to it. I was on Elektra for a while, and then it was off, and then I was signed by Asylum, which was a new label, and then they merged with Elektra, and then discontinued Asylum, and then started again. It's like, you know, it's not worth trying to follow.
What does it take for you to do a record? Do you have to? Do you have to write songs?
You're reminding me of this thing that I was telling. Once I said to David Geffen, I said, "Oh well." He said, "We hadn't seen each other in a long time, and he was no longer my record company president." But I said, "Oh, I'm about to go in the studio." He says, "Oh, I'm so sorry," because he knows how horrendous how much work it is. Really, it's like a search. It's like mining or something. It takes a long time, and I don't know when I'm done. You know, usually they have to be sort of made to get out of the studio. It's good if you run out of money and then you know you're done. But if you're not likely to run out of money, you're likely to keep on working. You know, and somebody I was talking to the other night. We were laughing about this because we're really more interested in finding out and doing things. I mean, it's not really, you know. It's not really clear when you're done. So anyway, I'm about to start a record. You know, I have this sort of a certain amount of trepidation, and I think some of the best music ever made was done very quickly, and some of the ones that took longer are probably not as, you know, fulfilling.
I guess the bottom line question is, do you write songs even though you don't have a record coming up, or?
Oh yeah. Hopefully you write songs for themselves. You know, you'd be writing songs if you worked for the Post Office, you know.
Yeah. But then when a record comes up, then you go into another mode and start writing more, or it's a different attitude then?
Yeah. Well, it's like this. I kind of think that I should be able to make a record. If I decide to make a record, I should be able to make a record, you know. I mean, after all, I'm a songwriter, and I should be able to just write a bunch of songs and make a record. But I think what gets hooked up is, a long time ago, somebody convinced me that I should be sure not to write the same song over and over again, and so I sort of have this imperative to uncover something new in myself. I'm always trying to, like, you know, so, and it's not possible. I mean, you know, if you write a bunch of songs, some of them are going to be on, you know, recurrent themes in your life, but I guess the idea is that I think you should only be making a record if you have something new to give or to offer, or something that you've discovered, and the process process becomes one of self-discovery. And I kind of envy those artists who have, you know, who make a record whenever they figure they can sell one, because you know, it's not about all that, and it must be a lot easier for them. Or maybe they have multiple producers and writers feeding them songs, and you know, maybe it's more about the performing of the thing. And for me, it's always been about discovery. So almost any excuse will do to write a song. I mean, but it's a daunting task. I think in many ways it's kind of a lonely occupation, because just because of that attitude, that bent, you know, that idea that you're trying to discover something new for yourself.
As near as I could tell, you've written very few songs with other people. Is that true?
I've written a few with other people, and actually, I've been writing with my band recently, because it's much more fertile territory musically, and because they're so great, you know, because these guys I've been playing with are so great. We jam a lot, and there's a lot of music that, and it gets sort of. There's a camaraderie that results in a certain kind of music, but I guess there's no way around the fact that when you really get down to it, you just got to be alone and with the little syllables and try to make them, you know, perform. You know, try to say something, just try to discover something worth saying. You know, I think as a matter of fact, I heard something that was being said by a musician last night, where he said something like, it's impossible to not. It's impossible to sing a lie. It winds up being the truth. Somehow the act of singing, you know, is the human body and soul becomes some sort of filter or prism in which, you know, what comes out must be the truth. It must be right, you know, or it's dreadful, you know. So a lot of these songs, which are kind of in a narrative, kind of in a personal narrative form, are not necessarily as autobiographical as all that. I mean, hopefully they turn out to be more or less about the life of the listener than about the, you know, person singing.
Our guest is Jackson Browne. How about another song?
All right. This is a song I wrote for a movie that didn't get used. And that's happened a couple of times, but.
Gather your deeds and your possessions, and whatever certainty you've known. Forget your heroes, you don't really need those last few lessons. Stand in the open, the next voice you hear will be your own. Well, alright, they knew how they could hurt you, and you let them cut you to the bone. But God forbid you allow them to rid you of your virtue. Forget their laughter, the next voice you hear will be your own. The next voice you hear, 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 the next voice you hear will be your own. Throw down your truth and check your weapons. Don't look to see if you're alone. Just stand your ground and don't turn around whatever happens. And don't ask direction, the next voice you hear will be your own. The next voice you hear, 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 the next voice you hear will be your own.
Live from Studio A, our guest is Jackson Browne. Jackson, I wanted you to tell us a little bit, share with us a little bit about the John Trudell album that you produced. It's been getting a lot of airplay on this station, various programs.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
doing
like it
really
a
well.
lot.
Well, let's see. Well, John and I have been friends for a long time, and I met him at Mount Taylor, New Mexico, at an anti-nuclear gathering, kind of a rally with speaking and some singing. And Bonnie Raitt and I were both there, and we met him, and he was so articulate. He used to speak, and he just only spoke. I mean, of course, what he does now is spoken word, which is a little different. But he used to simply speak. And we were introduced by a woman named Winona LaDuke, and I was just so struck by how astute his analysis of the situation was, and how magnetic and how powerful a speaker he was. And after 3 or 4 years of knowing him, he began writing. He was always writing poems and things. And he spoke at the No Nukes rally at Battery Park, huge gatherings. I think he spoke, he might have spoken here at the Rose Bowl on Peace Sunday. And but at a certain point, he started writing these poems, and then he hooked up with Jesse Ed Davis, and that got really good because there was this other Indian guy, and there was all this music, and it was surprisingly good stuff. I used to be kind of kind of amazed that it was that powerful and that well formed. And just gradually, I mean, sometimes I'd give him studio time, and other times I'd just listen to what he was doing. I mean, we're real good friends. So recently, I heard what he was doing, and he wasn't playing with a drummer, and I thought, this is the way you should do one. You should do one like this without bass and drums. Just do it with guitar and percussion. And I convinced him to do it this way. And we went in, and I knew the percussionist that I wanted to use, Luis Conte. So, we did this record pretty quickly, and then worked on it again about a year later. There was some delay with the record company. We wanted to be off of Ryko, and it took a while to do that. So it had a little room to breathe. To me, it's one of the best things I've ever been involved with. It's just very, very deep and satisfying record, and it grooves really wonderfully, in spite of the fact that there aren't any big bass or drums on it. It's just grooves because of the way it's made with the guitars and the percussion, and you can hear all the resonances of his voice. And he's a very expressive speaker, and to me, it's really kind of a beautiful, a very successful marriage of words and music.
The album is, the artist is John Trudell, and the album's called Blue Indians. But I can't find the name of the label on.
It's on Dangerous Discs.
Okay.
Which is his label.
Uh-huh.
Which is a division of Inside Recordings, which is my label. So we'll see how this goes. But it seems to be possible to have your own label these days, and really kind of get your own way about a few things.
I'm going to take just a minute out to tell everyone they're listening to KPFK Los Angeles, listener-sponsored Pacifica Radio for all of Southern California. We're at 90.7 on the FM dial. In Santa Barbara County, we're at 98.7. Listener-sponsored radio for all of Southern California. Stay tuned at 10 tonight for the premiere of a new program. That's what a premiere is, isn't it? Called Firehead Mythology Radio, when hosts Barry Gremlin, and Julia Brothers explore mythology and discover new meanings in these ancient stories. That's at 10 o'clock tonight, a premiere program called Firehead Mythology Radio. So stay tuned for that. This is KPFK Los Angeles. You're listening to Folk Scene for a Sunday night, heard every Sunday from 7 to 10 p.m. Our engineers are Peter Cutler and Stephen Barker. Our thanks to Alyssa Archibald and Canon Justice for their help. As I said before, our guest is Jackson Browne. Now, there's a couple of the albums that you made over the years that you co-produced. Is that something you really want to do, or is it something? I mean, it must be pretty hard to produce.
To me, the distinction of who's the producer and who, it was always kind of people who produced their own records. It was always sort of a meaningless distinction. I never even cared I used to always worked with engineers, and until this one time when this guy who was an engineer wanted to be the producer, and I let him say he was going to produce it. In his mind, it was a big deal, and he kind of got in his way, kind of ruined everything that he was doing by thinking of himself that way. But sometimes I even left it off. I don't think there's any kind of producer credit on For Every Man. It was just sometimes it says I produced it, other times with a few exceptions, it's always done the same way. I mean, but recently I worked with a producer, T-Bone Burnett. For The Pretender, I worked with the producer John Landau. But other than that, it's just always with whoever's there. It's the people who are, I get to work with Don Was, and he's a real producer. Yeah. And although it's hard to, we always kid him, and we call him Was Not Was, because he comes from that band Was Not Was. We call him Does Not Does, because we can't figure out what he does, except that he does it great. He makes the record happen really great. But it's sort of like the invisible hand, I mean, he just, makes it all happens in his presence in a funny way. And that's the optimum thing, just to have the machines running when something good happens, and to But as somebody that likes being in the studio, it's hard to get me to come out of there. I'm more interested in, can spend all day, tweaking some little sound or making something happen, and so sometimes it's good to have somebody who actually has a sense of competition, is trying to make a record and get it out, you know.
And when you were talking before about knowing when the record's over, I thought that's what a producer's for.
Well, I always finish the record and listen to it and go, oh no, this can't be, this can't come out like this, or hey, this can't be what I meant to do. And I'll go back in for a while and change a few things. But and then by that time, everybody's sort of on to me, and like the next time I listen to it, they're usually saying, okay, but it's done. You have to. That's it. That's happened more than once.
Live from Studio A, our guest is Jackson Browne. How about another song?
The sun going down in the USA. Down on Main, there's a family sleeping in the doorway. Around the corner you can hear the sound. People dancing round the golden calf. Those who have not, and those who have. On the billboards and the TV screens, they got food and cars, toys and trucks and jeans. Like a homeless child's fitful dreams. Smiling faces, free from wanting life's abundances beyond counting. World in motion, speed your changes, close your distances, drive your angels, lose your fears and meet your dangers. World in motion. Once we were running through smoke and fire, burning into the sun. In the rush of youth, for love and truth, our deeds were done. Now we awake with the world at stake, and a race we run. We run. The sun going down on the USA. The sun coming up 100 years away. On another world in another time. Things like hunger, greed and hatred, one way or another, gonna be eradicated. World in motion, speed your changes, close your distances, find your angels, lose your fears and meet your dangers. World in motion. To the world I look at this world and see is the world I know this world can be. You have a volunteer in me. Now come on.
Live from Studio A, our guest is Jackson Browne. Over the years, you have been involved in the anti-nuclear movement. You've been involved in some other, what I want human rights kinds of things. Does it affect your careers? I guess the question. Do you think?
No. When you say, I presume you mean, does it affect it negatively?
Yes.
No. And it wouldn't matter. I think that what people do in terms of most cultures have music that speaks directly to what's happening. And there are times when in our culture when there's always been a very strong current of people dealing with what their lives are really about, including talking about social issues, and but people would have you think that it's when I say people, I mean media and journalists who seem to be oblivious to the incredible, rich vein of this sort of thing, would sort of have you think it's a strange thing to do, or it's off to one side, it's in some way superfluous to life. But it's not. And frankly, I mean, if I began to list the people who sing about social issues, and it could go on. You could go on for hours, really. I mean, there are so many people that I don't even know. But if you think about people who are very successful who do that, well, Sting and Peter Gabriel and Tracy Chapman and Pearl Jam and Beck, and I mean, come on, like it's really sort of a myth propagated by pop sensibilities, that this in some way is not welcome. Yeah. That's just not true. There was a period of time in which it wasn't done very much, and it was a very brief period of time.
And I suppose it's some kind of management fear telling you not to get involved in that at some point.
I've never had managers that felt that way.
But
I know that as somebody who puts together benefits, now and then, I know that there are managers who do sort of have, and always from the very beginning there were managers who were afraid that because it was a benefit, the production values would not be good enough, or that their artists wouldn't be promoted professionally. I mean, that's a thing of the past too. I mean, that was changed by people like Tom Campbell and Bill Graham. I mean, it's not really the case. I mean, look at these. I mean, I can't name all the people that played this Tibetan Freedom Concert, but there's an example. That's every generation has a series of events in which people spontaneously rise to the awakening of what's going on around them, and perhaps it's because musicians are their own boss, and they can do what they want. That is the job. Do what you want. Be in touch with this life and what it contains. It usually falls to them to raise money or raise awareness about what's happening, and I think there's a very long and steady tradition of that in the United States.
Now, I'd like to mention that Jackson's support of certain issues goes beyond just doing benefits, because I remember getting a call from somebody who said they saw you in the 3rd Street Promenade passing out anti-nuclear literature. Does that ring a bell? But you're directly involved in a lot of these things. It's not just doing a concert and walking away.
I can't remember ever having done that in the 3rd Street Promenade or passing out literature. I mean, generally the form that it takes for me is, doing concerts or attending, rallies or speaking. I mean, I certainly have done a lot of anti-nuclear stuff and some recently, but most, in the 70s and early 80s. The truth is that that issue continues it continues to be a problem. Every generation, just as there's people get that this would be a great way to make some money,
Yeah.
And so it rears its head now and then. Of course, because this stuff is deadly for 280,000 years. I mean, it's going to be something, you're going to be dealing with the waste for all time. So it's something that's worth talking about. But actually, no, I don't think I was ever on the 3rd Street Promenade handing out literature. I would, though, if, I mean, it's...
Our guest is Jackson Browne. How about that?
Let's see.
Everybody I talk to is ready to leave with the light of the morning. They've seen the end coming down long enough to believe they've heard their last warning. Standing alone, each has his own ticket in his hand. And as the evening descends, I sit thinking about every man. Seems like I've always been looking for some other place to get it together, where with a few of my friends I could give up the race and maybe find something better. All my fine dreams, well thought out schemes to gain the motherland, have all eventually come down to waiting for every man. Waiting here for every man. Make it on your own if you think you can. See somewhere to go, I understand. Waiting here for every man. Don't ask me to feel sure. I don't know. Make it on your own if you think you can. Somewhere later on you'll have to take a stand. Then you'll need a hand. Everybody's just waiting to hear from the one who can give them the answers and lead them back to that place in the warmth of the sun, sweet childhood still dances. But who'll come along and hold out that strong but gentle father's hand? Long ago I heard someone say something about every man. Waiting here for every man. Make it on your own, make it if you think you can. If you see somewhere to go, I understand. I'm not trying to tell you that I've seen the plan. Trying to walk away if you think I am. But don't think too badly of one who left holding sand. He's just another dreamer, dreaming about every man.
guest is Jackson Browne, live from Studio A, and we have time for one more song. I did want to share with the audience that today I went record shopping to fill a couple gaps I had in my Jackson Browne collection, and everything Jackson's done is still available.
Yeah.
Everything. Starting. And that was,
That's
that
a
was
good
from your
thing.
second album, yeah, right? That was your second album, For Every Man?
Yeah, that's from my second album.
It was out of stock, but they're all in print. So, and the latest album is called Looking East on Elektra Records. And we have time for one more song.
Let me think for a second. I don't know. Let's see. We're sitting here in the studio in Howard's. I brought these other guitars, but decided I didn't really like them as I started getting ready to do this. I'm trying to figure out how to do everything on this one guitar. From my first album. Well, the papers lie there helplessly in a pile outside the door. I tried and tried, but I just can't remember what they're for. The world outside is tugging like a beggar at my sleeve. Oh, that's much too old a story to believe. And you know that it's taken its share of me, even though you take such good care of me. Now you say Morocco, and that makes me smile. I haven't seen Morocco in a long, long while. The dreams are rolling down across the places in my mind, and I've just had a taste of something fine. Well, the future hides and the past just slides. England lies between, floating in a silver mist, so cold and so clean. California shaking like an angry child will, who has asked for love and is unanswered still. And you know that I'm looking back carefully, 'cause I know that there's still something there for me. But you said Morocco, and you made me smile. It hasn't been that easy in a long, long while. And looking back into your eyes, I saw them really shine, giving me a taste of something fine. Something fine. Now if you see Morocco, I know you'll go in style, but I may not see Morocco for a little while. And
While you're there, I was hoping you might keep it in your mind to save me just a taste of something fine. Something fine.
Jackson, I want to thank you so much for doing this
Thanks,
again.
Ross.
This is KPFK Los Angeles.